The question is, as a seller, what fees do I pay? And there is a host of them. I'm going to just read down my list here. There's a long list, and then I will go through some of these a little more in depth. So there are marketing fees or realtor fees, and you could pay a seller's agent fee, buyer's agent fee. There's transaction fees attached to that also. You could pay different repairs or miscellaneous things that come up. Concessions, seller concessions. I'll explain what that is in a little bit. Title insurance, document prep fees, closing fees, mobile closer fees, revenue stamps, transfer fees, property tax prorations, prepaid interest, any property liens that come up on your property. And then there's also processing fees and courier fees that are included in that. And then there's also, sometimes there's like if you have a well and septic, you might have to pay to have those inspected as a requirement to transfer the title. And sometimes there's other fees, like one township here has a fire alarm code. So when you go to sell your home, you have to update all your smoke alarms and it has to be checked. Or for a while, Grand Rapids had a sidewalk inspection thing where you had to pay the city to come out and inspect your sidewalk, and if there was cracks or whatever, you had to fix it. That's gone away in Grand Rapids, but different townships have those different fees, and so depending on where you're at, you might have to pay for a sidewalk inspection, smoke alarms, or for a while, I know another township where you had to bury the power lines underground. So there's a host of fees that can come up. But I want to circle back to the concessions. Concessions can be very confusing because when you're paying concessions, people are like, well, what are concessions and how does that work? What a concession is when a seller says, okay, we're going to sell your house. Let's say you're selling your home for $200,000, and you get an offer on the house that says, we'll pay you $200,000, but we want 3% in seller concessions. What that means is you're going to take 3% of the 200, which would be $6,000, and you're going to give that back at closing to your buyer. So the seller gives it out of the 200,000. So that would be $6,000. Are you with me? I'm not sure I'm with me. So you got $6,000 out of that 200,000. You're going to give that to the buyer, and the buyer is going to use that for their closing fees. They can pay their bank origination fees, appraisal fees. There's a big long list that the mortgage company will allow them to use those fees for, and they cap that also. And so when it comes time to close, it will show $200,000 as your purchase price, but then you'll have a reduction in that. So when you get an offer that says $200,000 less 3% seller concessions, that offer is really $194,000 because you have to subtract that $6,000 from the offer, because you're taking that $6,000 from the $200,000 and you're giving it to the buyer. Talking about concessions, that brings us to realtor fees, because that's been a hot topic right now in the news. I'd like to talk about that a little bit. Historically, I would come in here and I would say, okay, I'm going to charge you, let's say I say 4%. I'm going to charge you 4% to sell your house, and I'm going to give 2% of that to a buyer's agent. You say, why would I have to pay a buyer's agent? Well, historically, the reason we would do that is because many times the buyer has the down payment for the house and the closing costs. They don't have money to then pay for representation. And we really want the buyer for your home to have representation. It makes the transaction so much smoother. Just like you're hiring an agent, we want an agent on the other side. And so there was a lot of confusion. People think that the rates are set. They're not. I charge a certain amount, and then you and I talk about, like if you're my seller, you and I are going to talk about what we want to pay a buyer's agent. We can pay that. Currently, we have to pay them at least $1 on our MLS, but things are changing. So we could offer $1, or we could offer anywhere from $1 up to however much we want. We could make it a percent of the sales price, or we can make it a flat fee. Historically, we've generally paid percentages of the sales price, and it's always worked very well. Currently, the way that the mortgages work, to get concessions to pay for a buyer's agent, you can't do that. And so that's another reason that we've generally offered to pay a buyer's agent. But that's just something I want you to be aware of, that you don't have to pay a buyer's agent, but in many cases it might be in your best interest too. And we can talk about that in another video, because that's a long discussion and we could debate it, but just something to be aware of, that you might pay for a buyer's agent and you might not. But so there's the realtor fees, and basically my best advice is to call a realtor and we can help you gather up all those numbers and help you figure out just how much it's going to cost you to sell your home, so we can help you figure out I would like to say what your equity position is. So if you'd like to find out what your equity position is, call us at Grand Allure Home Group.